Welcome to Debate Combats, where sharp minds meet tough questions with clear rules and real stakes. Tonight, we face a life and law dilemma born in desert border regions during peak heat. Here is the motion in plain terms: that volunteers should receive legal safe passage to deliver water and emergency aid to migrants and families even when those actions complicate state-level immigration enforcement. This is a temporary safeguard tied to dangerous heat seasons rather than a permanent rewrite of border policy. Our teams are conservatives and progressives, each with 8 voices behind the scenes and 2 speakers leading the charge in this opening. Progressives will argue for safe passage protections focused on saving lives first. Conservatives will argue that the rule of law and clear enforcement must not be blurred by private aid corridors. Keep in mind that both sides value human life and community safety, yet they disagree on the best path under pressure. We will begin with the affirmative case supporting the motion, followed by the negative case opposing it. Affirmative team, your floor is open for the initial case.
The motion is necessary because in extreme heat, a delay measured in minutes can decide whether a human being lives or dies.
When the desert bakes the ground like a skillet, a single bottle of water becomes the difference between a rescue and a recovery.
Safe passage for volunteers is a targeted legal shield that allows trained helpers to move supplies without fear of arrest while coordinating with authorities.
This is not a loose free-for-all, because volunteers can register, carry visible IDs, share routes, and log contacts with border officials.
We are proposing a seasonal humanitarian lane, narrow in scope, time-bound by heat alerts, and auditable by a shared dashboard.
Think of it like the Good Samaritan rules that protect bystanders who perform CPR, because the law should not punish a life-saving reflex.
Clear protocols can define where aid can be dropped, who may carry it, what training is required, and how to hand off to medical teams.
In practice, that means hydration packs, emergency beacons, and first aid delivered along mapped safety points, not shadow trails.
Far from undermining order, this plan reduces chaos by channeling help through predictable paths that law enforcement can monitor.
It also reduces the burden on officers who would rather prevent deaths than write reports about them after the fact.
Deterrence should never rely on the threat of heat stroke, because cruelty by climate is not policy, it is negligence.
If your neighbor collapses on your sidewalk in a heat wave, you call for help before asking for paperwork, and that moral instinct scales.
The motion balances compassion and control by limiting the shield to emergency aid, barring any role in transport or evasion.
Volunteers do not move people, they move water, first aid, and information toward survival, and the shield ends when the heat alert ends.
Every life saved preserves community trust, and trust makes future enforcement safer because fewer panicked people make desperate choices.
When people believe that rescue will not be criminalized, they seek help sooner, and sooner is how ambulances arrive in time.
Thank you, Affirmative, for a focused and structured case laid out with clear guardrails. Negative team, the floor is yours for the opening case against the motion.
The motion fails because private safe passage corridors blur the line between humanitarian aid and unlawful facilitation.
Once that line blurs in the heat of summer, it is hard to redraw when the season ends and the crowds grow.
Lawful process exists to manage borders, and ad hoc networks, even noble ones, can be exploited by smugglers who map the same routes.
A volunteer vest looks like a shield, yet a cartel spotter can wear the same vest, and no family wants their rescue confused with a ruse.
If the state grants a shield, the state also inherits liability when a drop goes wrong or when aid lures people deeper into danger.
I worry that hope is powerful advertising, because a cousin of a cousin hears that the desert is kinder now and sets out at noon.
The proper fix is government-led aid stations at controlled points with medical staff, heat shelters, and real oversight.
At those stations, officers can separate victims from traffickers, triage cases, and call ambulances without a guessing game.
Enforcement clarity deters risky crossings, and deterrence saves lives upstream by stopping the journey before the danger begins.
We do not leave people to suffer, yet we do not light a path that suggests the route is safer than it is.
A seasonal shield is easy to announce and hard to retract. And policy drift is how temporary becomes permanent by habit.
Families on both sides of the line deserve one message from one system, not a patchwork that confuses those in crisis.
If volunteers want to help, they can staff the official stations, carry radios, and work under a unified chain of command.
Compassion must wear a badge with rules, not a promise that luck and goodwill can outrun heat and crime.
The motion invites good intentions to do the work of law, and law should not outsource its duty to private groups.
Say yes to mercy, but keep mercy inside a framework that does not weaken the very fence that keeps more people from harm.
Affirmative team, please proceed with your targeted attack to press the core of your case.
By design, the shield is narrow, data-driven, and time-locked to heat alerts that are issued by public agencies with transparent thresholds.
Negative team, you may answer and steady your ground before advancing.
Even with thresholds, once a private corridor appears, opportunists use its predictability, and law must account for worst cases rather than best hopes.
Negative team, you now have the lane for a direct attack.
The proposal outsources emergency policy to volunteers who are unelected and unevenly trained, which invites liability, confusion, and a shadow chain of command.
Affirmative team, please offer your defense with precision and keep it concise.
The shield ties participation to certified training, verified IDs, logged routes, and radio contact with dispatch, which turns scattered kindness into a traceable system.
Negative team, prepare a two-voice attack with a clear lead and a sharp support.
Even traceable systems can mislead families into thinking the route is safer than it is, because a vest looks like a promise when the sun is merciless.
Moreover, the same mapping that guides aid guides smugglers, and the state becomes the unwilling navigator of illegal logistics.
Thank you, negative. And now I will cut here and pass the mic to the affirmative for a two-voice strike.
The shield is not a map to opportunity, but a circuit of triage that steers people toward checkpoints, medics, and surrender, rather than deeper into danger.
To reinforce that vector, supply drops are paired with beacon codes and signage that direct toward official stations, and volunteers must report all encounters.
That will do for now, affirmative, and I return the floor to the negative for a two-pronged defense with an answer and a provocative question.
If your plan relies on clean handoffs, show how you prevent a crush of people at a drop site without crowd control or legal authority.
When a child collapses and a smuggler demands priority, which volunteer decides the queue, and what happens when that decision sparks a fight?
Affirmative team, present your defense with one answer and one pointed weakness in the opposing frame.
Crowd risk is addressed by spacing, caps on drop loads, strict time windows, and coordination with officers who can stage nearby response without cloaking aid as enforcement.
The opposing frame treats deterrence by heat as tolerable collateral, which is a brittle foundation because cruelty fails as policy and backfires as rumor.
Judges, please provide interim impressions with one team you currently favor, one strength you see there, one weakness you see across the aisle, and one note of encouragement.
I lean affirmative for now, because their constraints sound testable, yet they must show clearer safeguards against the optics of false safety, and both sides should push for on-the-ground prototypes with shared audit.
I presently favor the negative due to institutional coherence, but they must quantify how official stations scale during peak heat, and I urge both teams to translate values into measurable thresholds.
My vote is open, though nudging affirmative, and I want sharper failure modes spelled out along with legal sunsets, while I encourage both teams to cut jargon and speak to families who fear the sun more than paperwork.
Round 2 begins with new angles expected, and I now pass to the negative for an opening strike.
Seasonal shields create perverse incentives by signaling that rescue awaits, which shifts risk calculations and attracts crossings at precisely the deadliest hours.
Affirmative team, please answer cleanly and directly.
Signals cut both ways, so the program broadcasts that aid routes terminate at controlled handoff points, and that volunteers cannot transport anyone, which aligns hope with surrender rather than flight.
Affirmative team, follow with your own attack to widen the gap.
The negative relies on an ideal state footprint that does not exist at scale today, so rejecting volunteer capacity is effectively choosing preventable deaths during the ramp-up.
Negative team, deliver your defense with a crisp line of reasoning.
Rejecting unsupervised lanes is not rejecting aid because the state can contract and deputize partners under a single protocol, which preserves clarity and accountability.
Affirmative team. Bring a two-voice attack with a lead and a support that lands specific detail.
We propose a joint registry that binds volunteers to heat alert windows, training badges, and GPS-stamped logs accessible to agencies in real time.
On top of that, each drop carries a call-out card directing to official shelters, and every contact triggers a time-stamped notification to dispatch.
Thank you. And now I will rein in the affirmative and move the flow to the negative for a two-voice attack.
Your logs become a dataset for traffickers because patterns predict presence, and prediction is leverage for those who game systems.
Furthermore, a notification without sworn authority changes nothing when a crowd demands action, so your plan loads moral strain onto people without badges.
I will halt there and pass to the affirmative for a two-voice defense featuring an answer and a counter-challenge.
The dataset risk is mitigated by randomized routing, delayed public releases, and geofenced publication that only authorized agencies can view live.
Since the criticism insists on badges, will you support fast-track auxiliary credentials for trained volunteers? Or is the objection less about authority and more about refusing help?
Negative team, you now have the floor for a two-voice defense with an answer and a weakness call-out.
Auxiliary credentials demand background checks, insurance, and command training, which takes time that heat waves do not grant, and shortcuts are precisely how tragedies occur.
A structural weakness in the opposing view is that it assumes neutral motives in every vest, while border crime thrives on imitation and misdirection.
Affirmative team, I am passing back to you for a solo attack aimed at the core premise of deterrence.
Deterrence that leans on the sun is indistinguishable from gambling with strangers, and a lawful society does not balance its books with heat stroke.
Negative team, you may answer in kind with a solo defense.
Deterrence rests on consistent signals about lawful crossings, and mixed messages breed tragedies, so discipline in policy communication is an act of mercy.
Negative team, take a solo attack to probe operational weak points.
Your volunteer radios will jam at scale, your water drops will attract theft, and your accountability chain will snap under the first viral incident.
Affirmative team, a solo defense is now yours.
Scale and theft are addressed by small caches with tamper seals, rotating frequencies, QR-based incident reporting, and a rapid shutoff that freezes routes upon any breach.
Negative team, prepare another two-voice attack with clearly divided roles.
Leadership requires saying no to elegant but risky workarounds when the stakes are human lives under criminal pressure.
The sustainable path is more official shelters, more medics, more transport, and one badge that commands obedience rather than many vests that invite doubt.
I will hold the negative there and grant the affirmative a two-voice attack to sharpen contrasts.
A badge without a body cannot hand a bottle to a fainting person in the no man's land where minutes evaporate into dust.
Our framework turns compassion into protocol by binding aid to alerts, training, IDs, logs, beacons, signage, and supervised handoffs that respect enforcement.
Negative team, compose a two-voice defense with an answer and a pointed question to test assumptions.
If supervised handoffs are the keystone, then why not place all resources at those points and forbid any movement beyond them to remove ambiguity?
If a volunteer meets a group led by an armed guide, will the protocol demand withdrawal? And what do you tell the child who begs for help while you retreat?
Affirmative team, respond with a two-voice defense, one answer and one weakness in the opposing strategy.
We forbid transport and require withdrawal when guns appear, but we also cache water at fixed safe points and call in officers, which splits danger from aid while still serving life.
The opposing strategy underestimates the time lag in scaling official sites, and the gap is where heat kills, so refusing a temporary bridge is refusing responsibility.
Negative team, you have the next solo attack with a focus on legal architecture.
A temporary shield collides with state statutes on facilitation, and constant carve-outs teach people that laws are negotiable under pressure.
Affirmative team, present a concise solo defense.
The shield can be a narrowly tailored Good Samaritan-style defense tied to declared emergencies, which clarifies rather than erodes the law.
Affirmative team, deliver a solo attack to highlight pragmatic outcomes.
When fewer people die, trust rises, and with trust, more people approach checkpoints early, which paradoxically makes lawful processing easier.
Negative team, a solo defense may follow.
Trust also falls when people feel rules break for some and not others, and the appearance of special lanes corrodes that faith.
Affirmative team, push another solo attack with ethical framing.
Ethics demands that we do not let geography and heat decide who is worthy of breath, and law gains legitimacy when it refuses death as leverage.
Negative team, a solo defense is granted to address ethics with order.
Mercy can and must live inside structure, because structure is how mercy reaches everyone the same way, rather than whoever meets a volunteer first.
Negative team, organize a two-voice attack drawing on logistics and psychology.
Logistically, dispersed drops multiply points of failure, from spoiled supplies to misread beacons, and each failure teaches the wrong lesson.
Psychologically, the promise of a bottle halfway through a desert road keeps feet moving toward risk when the wiser choice was never to start.
Affirmative team, answer with a two-voice attack that reframes risk and proposes safeguards.
Risk migrates with or without us, so we reduce it by synchronizing with heat alerts, capping loads, standardizing kits, and automating alerts to agencies.
Safeguards include multilingual signage, child-focused triage queues, and clear instructions that the safest path is toward official stations within radio range.
Negative team, provide a two-voice defense with one direct answer and one challenge that tests scalability.
Your multilingual plan is admirable, but staffing translators and trainers across hundreds of miles is a monumental lift that crowds out core enforcement duties.
If the shield widens as summers grow hotter, where do you draw the line between emergency lane and parallel system, and who enforces the line at the edge?
Affirmative team, make a two-voice defense that lands a concrete boundary and a critique.
The line is the heat alert and the ban on transport, and any expansion outside those triggers sunsets automatically by statute.
The critique is that waiting for a perfect monolith ignores reality, and leadership is also measured by how we bridge the present without losing the future.
Negative team, another solo attack is available to press the concern about precedent.
Precedent spreads, so a humanitarian lane at the border becomes a template for exceptions elsewhere, and the net effect is legal fatigue.
Affirmative team, close this segment with a solo defense.
Emergencies have always carried targeted exceptions like fire lines and storm shelters, and clarity in scope, time, and audit keeps them from swallowing the rule.
We will take 2 more target exchanges, and then move to cross-checks.
If your audits find abuse, who prosecutes the abusers? And how do you prevent reformers from painting prosecutions as an attack on compassion?
Abuse is prosecuted like any fraud, and transparency protects honest helpers while isolating bad actors, which ultimately preserves public faith.
Final exchange before we pivot to broader synthesis.
A shield that requires this much explanation is likely to fail amid noise and panic, because complexity is a luxury the desert does not grant.
Complexity lives behind the scenes while the field rules stay simple, and the simplest rule is that no one should die of thirst within reach of a lawful society.
Thank you to both teams for sustained rigor, and we will now transition into audience questions in the next phase after brief preparation time. Before we close this chapter, I want to check for loose ends and fresh angles, so keep it tight, keep it bold, and stay within the guardrails.
One angle still missing is how a narrow shield protects officers too, because predictable aid lanes reduce chaotic encounters that put everyone at risk.
That sounds tidy, yet on the ground, tidy breaks fast when a crowd moves toward water, while a smuggler whispers directions to the most dangerous path.
The crowd risk exists either way, so let us move it toward monitored handoffs instead of leaving it to rumor and heat.
Your monitored handoffs become moving targets for bad actors who track your timings and harvest your good intentions.
We break that pattern with randomized dispatch windows, route shuffles, and strict caps, and we publish nothing in real time to the public feed.
Random does not comfort a parent when a drop vanishes, and failed expectations are how panic starts and trust ends.
Panic falls when rules are posted in clear language at safe points that always exist during alerts, while moving drops are simply supplemental.
Supplemental aid still shifts the signal from do not start to maybe you will make it, and that shift costs lives upstream.
The upstream lives you fear are already moving under record heat, and refusing a legal shield for life-saving minutes is policy by shrug.
Policy is not a shrug when it protects a single chain of command, because ambiguity kills more quietly than heat, but just as surely.
We will now enter a rapid free debate, alternating speakers, and I will cut hard if lines are crossed.
You warn about ambiguity while promoting an ideal network that does not exist at scale this summer, and heat does not wait for procurement cycles.
You sell a bridge that you cannot guarantee to build on time or staff with vetted people, and false bridges lead to falls.
Our bridge is a lane, not a promise. And the promise we do make is that no one will be punished for handing water to a dying person during an alert.
Your moral framing dodges the legal lesson that every exception trains the public to negotiate with laws they dislike.
We do not negotiate with the law, we specify a Good Samaritan defense within declared emergencies that ends with the alert.
Carve-outs multiply as summers lengthen, and your sunset becomes a season-long glow that never really turns dark.
Then make the threshold sharper and the audits public, because sunlight beats shadow and lives are not bargaining chips.
Your sunlight blinds when it reveals routes that cartels can watch, screenshot, and exploit before the next storm of posts.
Live feeds are restricted to agencies, public notices are generic, and the only specific direction is toward official shelters.
A generic sign that implies help is ahead can still lure people deeper, and a mirage hurts even when you meant a well.
We mark distance, we mark risk colors like weather alerts, and we add beacons that call for help without moving anyone farther.
Beacons do not pick up a child, and volunteers without authority cannot triage violence when a guide demands obedience.
Volunteers withdraw on contact with guns and call in officers, which respects the badge, while protecting life where it is reachable.
Withdrawal may be lawful, but it is devastating optics when a camera catches someone walking away from a pleading family.
Optics cannot override safety, yet optics improve when the public sees that the lane leads to officers and medics rather than into the wild.
Show me a pilot where none of your safeguards failed under stress, and then we can talk about scaling lanes rather than fantasies.
Pilots are the point, because refusal to test becomes a decision to accept avoidable deaths every time the heat horn sounds.
Testing with human stakes invites tragedy, and a single failure can ignite copycats or backlash that ruins broader cooperation.
We pilot with tight scope, small sectors, and medical teams on call, and the alternative is pretending the status quo is not failing.
The status quo can improve by adding official shelters, mobile clinics, and buses, all with one command post and clear rules.
We want those too, but build time is long, so we need an interim shield to carry us through the deadliest weeks.
Interim fixes have a habit of becoming the new normal, and the border is no place for permanent improvisation.
Improvisation is what happens without rules, while a statutory shield is rules written down and audited by design.
You cannot audit motives at scale, and your vest will be imitated by those who sell dreams for cash and deliver heat for pain.
Imitation exists now, which is why clear badges, QR verification, and public awareness campaigns help families tell real help from a trap.
Families in crisis do not scan QR codes under the sun, and every second you ask for verification is a second they lose to heat.
Which is why the first rule is give water and call dispatch, and the second is direct to shelter with simple arrows every child can read.
Arrows point deeper as easily as they point safer, and you do not control which arrow the rumor mill believes.
Rumor thrives in silence, so we answer with posted maps that lead only to official points and never advertise lane schedules.
Schedules leak, and when they do, your carefully balanced plan turns into a rush hour stampede without barriers or authority.
Then we lock in surge protocols with agencies, including temporary fencing at handoff zones and shade tents staged in advance.
Fencing is enforcement, so acknowledge that you need the state at every turn, which means your private lane is redundant at best.
We have said from the start that coordination is essential, and the shield prevents punishing helpers while coordination ramps.
If coordination is essential, place all effort inside the official system and do not scatter help across dooms.
The dunes are where people collapse, so the ethical line is to reach them with water while guiding them to the official gate.
Ethics without order is a short story with a sorrowful end, and order begins with one badge and one voice.
This exchange is at maximum heat, and we will now pivot to closings, starting with the affirmative for final statements.
The facts are these. Extreme heat turns minutes into life or death. Volunteers already act, and without a shield, the law risks punishing rescue while saving no one.
To the judges, we offer a narrow, auditable, time-bound defense that channels aid toward official shelters, reduces chaos, and treats lives not as leverage, but as duty.
Negative team, deliver your final statements with clarity and care.
Our facts are firm. Consistent command saves lives. Private lanes blur signals, and blurred signals invite risk, exploitation, and a precedent that outlives the season.
To the judges, we ask for discipline that concentrates mercy inside one system with authority, accountability, and a single message that deters danger before it starts.
Judges, please offer your decisions and reasons, and keep your praise generous and your logic sharp.
I vote for the affirmative because they drew a precise legal frame with audits, sunsets, and joint routing that persuades me the shield can save lives without erasing order, and I applaud the negative for relentless rigor that will improve any pilot.
I vote for the negative because institutional coherence must precede expansion, and the affirmative did not fully solve for scale, impersonation, and crowd control, and I salute the affirmative for moral clarity that should shape official shelter design.
I vote for the affirmative because their emergency defense is the rare bridge that respects law while refusing death as policy, and I commend the negative for vital warnings on scope creep that the statute must confront line by line.
By a vote of 2-1, the affirmative carries the day, and we congratulate the progressive team for a disciplined, compassionate case.
We're grateful for the tough questions because they sharpen the safeguards we need to implement before the next alert.
We dedicate this win to the idea that rules and mercy can share the same map when the sun is merciless.
We accept the result with respect, and we urge that any shield adopt the strictest training and verification before boots hit sand.
Our takeaway is that a unified system must grow faster, so the next season is defined by clear shelters rather than conflicting signals.
Thank you to both teams for relentless effort, and to our judges for wisdom and grit across a difficult line. To everyone who stayed to the end, your attention is precious, and we appreciate your time and curiosity. If you enjoyed tonight, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments so the debate continues responsibly. If you want to support more episodes, use the QR code on the lower right or the link in the video description to donate to the channel. You will also find links in the description to other works from entirely different series that offer fresh angles and surprises. Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay kind, and join us again for the next round of debate combats.